A black girl walked in on a Korean mafia boss in the bathroom. What happened next will shock you. 8 months ago, Maya Thompson accidentally walked into the private bathroom of Jin Park, Seoul's most dangerous crime boss. What started as a terrifying mistake became an epic love story that defied every expectation. Now, as Maya prepares to marry the man who once held her life in his hands, a ghost from Jin's past emerges with secrets that could destroy everything they've built together. Whether you're returning to Maya and Mafia boss world or discovering it for the first time, this is the story of how a wedding became a battlefield, how loyalty was tested by impossible choices, and how two people fought to protect their love against enemies both old and new. Before we begin, drop a comment telling me if you're Team Maya or Team Mafia boss, and hit that subscribe button because this story has twists you absolutely won't see coming. The safe house Jin brought Maya to was a penthouse apartment in Gangnam, one of several properties he owned under shell companies. It was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seoul skyline. But right now, Maya barely noticed the view. She was too focused on Jin as he paced the living room, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean to various members of his organization. His shirt was still stained with blood, and the cut on his face had stopped bleeding but needed attention. Maya watched him, seeing the weight of leadership settling heavily on his shoulders. 2 of his men were dead. Others were injured. Properties were damaged. And Kang had declared open war. When Jin finally ended his call, Maya approached him with the first aid kit she'd found in the bathroom. "Sit," she commanded, pointing to the couch. "Let me clean that cut before it gets infected." Jin looked like he might argue, then thought better of it and sat. Maya dampened a clean cloth and gently cleaned the blood from his face. The cut wasn't deep, but it ran along his cheekbone, angry and red. "You should see a doctor," Maya said quietly. "I'll be fine, I've had worse," Jin replied, but he didn't pull away from her touch. His eyes closed briefly as she worked, and Maya saw the exhaustion in the lines of his face. "Tell me what's happening," Maya said as she applied antiseptic. "All of it. No protecting me from the truth. If I'm really part of this family, I need to know what we're facing." Jin opened his eyes and looked at her, and Maya saw something shift in his expression. He'd been treating her as someone to protect, to shield from the worst of his world. But she was right. She'd chosen this path, and she deserved to know everything. "Kang has been planning this for months," Jin began. "He's allied with 2 smaller organizations and convinced them that together they can take over our territory. Tonight's attacks were coordinated, designed to make us look weak and vulnerable. He killed 2 of my senior members, men who've been with this organization for over a decade. He wants to draw me out, make me react emotionally instead of strategically." "Are you going to?" Maya asked, finishing with the antiseptic and applying a small bandage. Jin smiled grimly. "What do you think?" "I think you're too smart to give him what he wants," Maya said, sitting beside him. "But I also think you're angry enough that part of you wants to storm his headquarters and end this tonight." Jin was quiet for a moment, then laughed softly. "You know me too well. Yes, part of me wants exactly that. But the rational part knows that's what he's counting on. If I go in hot, I make mistakes. People die. We lose the advantage." "So what's the plan?" Maya asked. Jin stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "We play this smart. Kang thinks he's caught us off guard, but he's wrong. I've been preparing for this possibility since the moment I took over this organization. We have resources he doesn't know about, alliances he hasn't counted on, and most importantly, we have discipline. His coalition is held together by greed and opportunism. That's a weak foundation. We just need to apply the right pressure and it'll crumble." He turned back to Maya. "But it's going to get dangerous. Very dangerous. Kang won't stop until one of us is dead or out of Seoul entirely. I can still get you out of the country. Set you up somewhere safe with enough money to start over. No one would blame you for leaving." Maya stood and crossed to him, taking his hand. "I'm not leaving. I told you in the car, whatever comes next, we face it together. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be locked away for protection. You trained me. Trust that training." Jin squeezed her hand, his eyes searching her face. "Maya, if something happens to you because of me, because you got caught up in my world, I don't think I could forgive myself." "Then don't let anything happen to me," Maya said simply. "Protect me by keeping me close, by teaching me more, by treating me like the asset I've proven myself to be. I'm more useful to you here than I would be hiding in some foreign country wondering if you're alive or dead. Jin pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her face, thumb tracing along her jawline. When did you become so fearless? The night I walked into your bathroom, Maya said with a slight smile. Or maybe I always was, and I just needed the right circumstances to find out. Jin's expression softened, and for a moment, the crime boss facade disappeared entirely. He was just a man, 32 years old, carrying impossible weight, looking at a woman who'd somehow become essential to him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Maya, he said quietly. Us. It's complicated. The rules of my world don't exactly encourage personal attachments, especially not with someone in my organization. It creates vulnerabilities, complications. I know, Maya whispered. But it's too late, isn't it? This stopped being just business a long time ago. Jin nodded slowly. The moment you challenged those Yakuza bosses and made them respect you, I think that's when I realized you were different. Special. And every day since then has just confirmed it. He leaned down, and Maya rose on her toes to meet him, their lips connecting in a kiss that was somehow both tender and desperate. It was a kiss that acknowledged the danger surrounding them, the impossibility of their situation, and the undeniable connection that had grown between them despite everything. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing heavily, Jin rested his forehead against hers. If we do this, if we acknowledge what's happening between us, it changes things. You become my greatest weakness and my greatest strength simultaneously. Our enemies will target you to hurt me. Then we don't let them, Maya said firmly. We're smart. We're careful, and we protect each other. That's how this works. Jin smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his face. Okay, together then, in every way. They spent that night planning strategy, calling in loyal members of Jin's organization and fortifying their positions. Maya sat in on every meeting, taking notes, offering insights, and slowly understanding the full scope of what they were facing. Kang's coalition controlled about 30% of Seoul's underground economy. They had numbers, aggression, and the advantage of surprise on their side. But Jin's organization had experience, discipline, and deep roots in the city's power structure. More importantly, they had loyalty. The men and women who worked for Jin didn't just fear him, they respected him. That was a crucial difference. Over the next 2 weeks, the war escalated. There were skirmishes, ambushes, and retaliations on both sides. Jin's organization struck back at Kang's drug distribution network, crippling his cash flow. Kang responded by burning down one of Jin's restaurants. 3 more people died, 2 from Kang's organization and 1 civilian caught in the crossfire. Maya hated the violence, hated knowing that people were dying because of a power struggle between organizations. But she also understood that this was the reality of the world Jin inhabited. There was no peaceful resolution available. Either Jin's organization survived, or it didn't. She made herself useful in ways that didn't involve direct violence. She helped coordinate communication between Jin's various operations, ensuring everyone stayed informed and aligned. She continued reviewing contracts and legal documents, making sure they weren't vulnerable to legal attacks while dealing with the physical ones. And she started working with Mrs. Cho to identify potential moles or weak points in their security. It was Mrs. Cho who came to Maya 3 weeks into the war with disturbing news. They were in the club's office, reviewing employee records, when the older woman's expression turned grave. I need to tell you something, Mrs. Cho said in Korean, which Maya now understood much better. Something I overheard. Maya set down the file she'd been reading. What is it? One of the bartenders, Lee Minho, I heard him on the phone last night after closing. He was telling someone about Jin's schedule, about when he'd be at the club, what routes he takes. I think he's feeding information to Kang. Maya's blood ran cold. A mole inside their operation could be catastrophic. Are you certain? Not 100%, Mrs. Cho admitted, but certain enough to be worried. The question is, what do we do about it? Maya thought carefully. If they were wrong, accusing Lee could damage morale and trust within the organization. But if they were right and did nothing, Jin could walk into a trap. We need to test him, Maya said finally. Feed him false information and see if Kang acts on it. If he does, we'll know for sure Lee is the leak. Mrs. Cho nodded approvingly. Smart. What kind of false information? Maya considered. Something valuable enough that Kang would have to respond, but not so valuable that it puts anyone in real danger if it gets out. What if we let it slip that Jin is planning to meet with a new weapon supplier at a specific location, but we actually have that location under surveillance? If Kang's men show up, we'll know, Lee told them. And if they don't show up? Mrs. Cho asked. Then we investigate further before making accusations, Maya replied. Better to be careful than to create division within our own ranks. They implemented the plan that evening. Mrs. Cho made sure Lee overheard her telling another employee about the supposed weapons meeting, scheduled for 2 nights later at a warehouse in Itaewon. Then they waited. Maya informed Jin about the potential mole and their plan to confirm it. He was furious at the possibility of betrayal, but approved of their careful approach. If Lee is working for Kang, Jin said darkly, he'll regret it. Betraying the family is the one thing I don't forgive. 2 nights later, Maya was positioned in a surveillance van near the Itaewon warehouse with Jin and 2 of his security specialists. They'd set up cameras covering all approaches to the building, and now they watched and waited. At exactly the time the fake meeting was supposed to happen, 3 cars pulled up to the warehouse. 8 men got out, all armed, all clearly expecting to ambush Jin and his supposed weapons contact. There's our confirmation, Jin said coldly, watching the screen. Lee sold us out. Maya felt a mixture of vindication and sadness. She'd been right, but being right meant someone they'd trusted had betrayed them. Jin made a phone call, speaking quietly in Korean. Within minutes, his men had surrounded the warehouse. The ambush became the ambushed. There was a brief firefight, but Jin's men had superior position and numbers. When it was over, 5 of Kang's men were in custody, 2 were dead, and 1 had escaped. Take the prisoners to the secondary location, Jin ordered. I want to know everything they know about Kang's operations. Be persuasive. After the prisoners were taken away, Jin made another call. Bring Lee to the club. Now. I don't care if he's sleeping. Get him there. An hour later, they were back at the Golden Phoenix. Lee was brought to Jin's office, confused and frightened, clearly not understanding why he'd been summoned in the middle of the night. Maya stood in the corner of the office, watching as Jin sat behind his desk, his expression cold and unreadable. Mrs. Cho was there too, her face sad but determined. Lee Minho, Jin began in Korean. How long have you worked for this organization? Lee's confusion deepened. 3 years, sir. Is something wrong? You tell me, Jin said quietly. Is there something you need to confess? Something you've done that might displease me? Lee's eyes darted around the room, landing on Mrs. Cho, then Maya, then back to Jin. I don't understand, sir. I've always been loyal. Really? Jin opened a folder on his desk and pulled out several photographs, sliding them across to Lee. They showed Lee on his phone outside the club, captured by security cameras on various nights. Then explain these. Explain who you've been calling. Explain why 8 of Kang's men showed up at a location only you and a few trusted employees knew about. Lee's face went pale. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. I'm going to ask you once, Jin continued, his voice deadly calm. And your answer will determine what happens next. Did you betray this organization to Kang? Did you sell information about me? About our operations? About my people? Silence stretched out, heavy and suffocating. Then Lee's shoulders slumped, and he nodded once, barely perceptible. Why? Jin demanded. And now there was emotion in his voice. Anger. Yes. But also hurt. I paid you well. Protected you. Treated you fairly. Why betray that? They have my sister, Lee whispered. Kang's men kidnapped her 2 months ago. Said they'd kill her if I didn't cooperate. I didn't want to betray you, sir. I swear. But she's all the family I have left. I couldn't let her die. The revelation changed the atmosphere in the room. Maya saw Jin's expression shift from cold fury to something more complicated. This wasn't simple greed or ambition. This was coercion. A man trapped between impossible choices. Why didn't you come to me? Jin asked, his voice quieter now. If you'd told me, I could have helped. I could have gotten your sister back safely. I was afraid, Lee admitted, tears streaming down his face now. Afraid you'd think I was weak. Afraid you wouldn't believe me. Afraid Kang would kill her before you could act. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Jin was quiet for a long moment, and Maya could see him wrestling with competing impulses. The rules of his world demanded harsh punishment for betrayal, but the reality of Lee's situation complicated that simple justice. Finally, Jin spoke. Where is your sister being held? Lee looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. An apartment building in Mapo. I have the address. Kang keeps her guarded. 2 men always there. Jin picked up his phone and made a call. I need an extraction team. 2 hostile targets, 1 civilian hostage. I'm sending you an address. He looked at Lee. Write down the exact location, apartment number, everything you know about the guards and the layout. Lee scrambled to comply, scribbling the information on paper with shaking hands. After Lee finished, Jin leaned back in his chair. Here's what's going to happen. My team will extract your sister tonight. If she's there, if this information is accurate and she's brought back safely, then we'll discuss your punishment. You still betrayed the organization, still put people at risk. That can't go unanswered. But I'll take your circumstances into account. And if she's not there? Lee asked quietly. Then you've lied to me one more time, Jin said flatly, and there will be no mercy. The extraction team moved within the hour. Maya stayed at the club with Jin, Mrs. Cho, and Lee, waiting for news. The tension was unbearable, made worse by not knowing if Lee had told the truth or if this was another layer of deception. 45 minutes later, Jin's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then said simply, Bring her here. He hung up and looked at Lee. Your sister is safe. She's malnourished and frightened, but unharmed. They're bringing her to the club now. Lee collapsed in his chair, sobbing with relief. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. When Lee's sister arrived 20 minutes later, the reunion was emotional and raw. The girl was 19, thin and scared, and she clung to her brother like he was the only solid thing in a shifting world. Jin gave them privacy for a few minutes, then called Lee back into the office alone. Maya stayed, wanting to see how Jin would handle this impossible situation. Lee, Jin began, you betrayed this organization. The standard punishment for that is death. You understand this, yes? Lee nodded, his face ashen but resigned. However, Jin continued, your betrayal was coerced, not voluntary. That matters. And you've provided valuable information about Kang's operations through your contact with him. That also matters. So here's my decision. You and your sister will leave Seoul tonight. I'm sending you to Busan, with enough money to start over. You'll find work there, build a new life, and you will never, under any circumstances, return to Seoul or have contact with anyone in this organization again. If you do, the mercy I'm showing you tonight is void, and the standard punishment will apply. Do you understand? Yes, sir, Lee whispered. Thank you. I swear I'll never come back. I'll never speak of this organization or anything I know. Please believe me. I do, Jin said. Which is why I'm letting you live. Now go. Pack what you need. A car will take you to Busan in 1 hour. Don't miss it. After Lee left, Maya approached Jin. That was merciful of you. Most people in your position would have killed him regardless of the circumstances. Jin sighed, running a hand through his hair. Maybe, but killing him doesn't serve any purpose except sending a message. And the message I want to send to my organization is that loyalty is valued, circumstances are considered, and mercy is possible for those who deserve it. Lee made terrible choices, but he was trapped. I can understand that, even if I can't fully forgive it. Maya wrapped her arms around Jin from behind, resting her head against his back. This is why your people are loyal to you, not because they fear you, but because they know you're fair. Jin turned in her embrace, pulling her close. I hope you're right, because we're going to need that loyalty in the coming days. With the information we got from Kang's captured men and what Lee told us, I think I've found a way to end this war. But it's going to be risky. Tell me, Maya said. Jin led her to his desk and pulled up a map of Seoul on his computer. Kang's strength comes from his coalition with the 2 smaller organizations. But coalitions are fragile, especially when they're built on fear and greed rather than genuine alliance. One of those organizations is run by a man named Choi. He's ambitious but ultimately pragmatic. If I can convince him that Kang is going to lose this war, that staying aligned with him is a losing proposition, Choi might break away from the coalition. Without Choi's resources and territory, Kang's position becomes much weaker. How do you convince Choi to switch sides? Maya asked. By demonstrating strength and offering him a better deal, Jin replied. We've been reactive so far, defending against Kang's attacks. Tomorrow, we go on offense. We hit 3 of Kang's most profitable operations simultaneously. We show Choi that we're not weakened, that we're capable of sustained offensive action. Then I approach Choi directly with a proposition. Break from Kang, maintain neutrality, or better yet, ally with us, and I'll give him expanded territory and better profit margins than Kang ever offered. Maya studied the map, understanding the strategy. And if Choi refuses? Then we keep fighting until we win anyway, Jin said grimly. But I think he'll accept. Choi is a businessman first. He'll recognize the superior offer. The offensive was launched the next day. Jin's organization struck with precision and overwhelming force. A drug warehouse owned by Kang was raided and burned. A smuggling operation at the docks was disrupted, with several boats seized and destroyed. And most dramatically, a nightclub Kang had recently taken over was targeted, with Jin's men walking in during peak hours and publicly announcing that the club was now under Park family protection. The message was clear. Jin's organization was not just surviving, they were dominating. By the end of the day, Kang had lost an estimated $3 million in assets and revenue, and his reputation for invincibility had taken a serious hit. 2 days later, Jin arranged a meeting with Choi at a neutral location, a traditional tea house in Insadong that was known for hosting sensitive negotiations. Maya accompanied him, along with 4 security personnel who waited outside. Choi was a man in his 50s, portly and well-dressed, with shrewd eyes that missed nothing. He arrived with his own security and settled across from Jin at a low table, accepting the tea that was poured for him. Park, Choi began in Korean. You requested this meeting. I'm curious what you have to say. I'll be direct, Jin replied. This war with Kang is bad for everyone's business. It's drawing police attention, disrupting operations, and costing all of us money. But more importantly, it's a war Kang can't win. He overextended himself, made enemies he can't handle. You're smart enough to see that. Choi sipped his tea, his expression neutral. Perhaps, but I've made commitments to Kang. Breaking those commitments would make me appear weak and untrustworthy. Unless you had good reason, Jin countered. Kang promised you expanded territory and increased profits, correct? What if I offered you the same thing but with better terms and more security? My organization has deeper roots, better connections with police and politicians, and as you saw this week, superior operational capacity. Aligning with me is a better long-term investment than staying with Kang. Maya watched Choi carefully, seeing the calculations running behind his eyes. He was tempted, she could tell, but he was also cautious. What exactly are you proposing? Choi asked. Jin pulled out a document, sliding it across the table. A formal alliance. You break from Kang, publicly declare neutrality in this conflict, and 6 months from now, once the dust settles, we formalize a partnership. I give you operational control of 2 districts I currently hold, you maintain your existing territory, and we coordinate rather than compete on major operations. You get 40% of joint venture profits, significantly better than the 25% Kang offered you. Choi picked up the document, reading it carefully. The room was silent except for the soft sound of pages turning. Finally, Choi set down the document and looked at Jin. You're asking me to betray an ally. I'm asking you to make a smart business decision, Jin corrected. Kang is going to fall, whether you're with him or not. The only question is whether you fall with him or whether you position yourself to thrive in the aftermath. I'm offering you a path to the latter. Choi was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I need 24 hours to consider this offer and discuss it with my senior people. Can you give me that? You have 12 hours, Jin said firmly. This offer expires at noon tomorrow. After that, I'll assume you've chosen to remain with Kang, and I'll treat you accordingly. It was a power move, forcing Choi to make a decision quickly rather than hedging his bets. Maya saw the flash of irritation in Choi's eyes, but also respect. Jin was playing this perfectly. 12 hours then, Choi agreed, standing and bowing slightly. I'll have my answer for you by noon. After Choi left, Maya turned to Jin. Do you think he'll accept? I think he's already decided to accept, Jin replied. That meeting was about maintaining face, about making it look like he carefully considered his options rather than jumping at the first opportunity. He'll call me in about 8 hours with his acceptance. Jin was right. 8.5 hours later, his phone rang. Choi's voice was formal but clear. He was breaking from Kang's coalition and accepting Jin's offer of alliance. The impact was immediate and devastating for Kang. With Choi's defection, the third member of the coalition, a small gang called the Tigers, also withdrew, unwilling to fight without Choi's support. Suddenly, Kang's grand coalition had collapsed, and he was left facing Jin's organization alone. Over the next week, Jin's men systematically dismantled Kang's operations. Without the buffer of allied territory and resources, Kang's weaknesses were exposed. His men began deserting, seeing the writing on the wall. His financial backers pulled their support, unwilling to throw money at a losing proposition. And then, 10 days after Choi's defection, Jin received intelligence that Kang was planning to flee Seoul entirely, abandoning his organization and running to avoid the consequences of his failed power grab. "We can't let him run," Jin told Maya in his office. "If he escapes, he'll just regroup somewhere else, come back when he thinks we're vulnerable. This needs to end now, permanently." "What are you going to do?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. "What I have to do," Jin said grimly. "End this the way these things have always ended." That night, Jin's men tracked Kang to a warehouse near the Han River where he was supposedly preparing to leave the country. Jin personally led the team, and after much internal debate, he allowed Maya to come along, positioning her with the secondary team that would secure the perimeter. Maya watched from a safe distance as Jin and his men entered the warehouse. There were shouts, the sound of gunfire, and then an eerie silence. 10 minutes later, Jin emerged, his expression hard and closed off. "It's done," he said simply when he reached Maya. "Kang is dead. His remaining men have been given a choice: leave Seoul forever or join my organization under strict terms. Most will leave." Maya nodded, feeling the weight of what had just happened. A man was dead, killed by Jin's order if not Jin's hand directly. This was the reality of the world she'd chosen, the darkness that came with the light. Jin seemed to sense her thoughts. On the drive back, he took her hand. "I know this is difficult. I know you never wanted to be part of something that ends in violence and death, but I need you to understand something. Kang started this war. He killed my people, destroyed our property, threatened everything I've built. If I'd shown weakness, if I'd let him escape, it would have invited more challenges, more violence, more death. Sometimes the merciful thing is to be ruthless." "I know," Maya said quietly. "I understand the logic. I just hate that it has to be this way." "So do I," Jin admitted. "Every death weighs on me, Maya. Every life lost in this conflict is something I'll carry. But that's the price of leadership in this world. I don't get to have clean hands." The war officially ended 3 days later when Jin held a meeting with all the major organizations in Seoul, including his new ally Choi. He laid out new rules of engagement, new territories, new profit-sharing arrangements, and everyone agreed because everyone had seen what happened to those who challenged the Park family. Jin's organization emerged stronger than ever, with expanded territory, new alliances, and a reputation for decisive action that would discourage future challenges. The cost had been high: 8 dead, numerous injured, and millions in property damage, but they'd survived and thrived. For Maya, the aftermath was a strange mix of relief and reflection. She'd proven herself invaluable during the crisis, helping identify the mole, coordinating operations, and supporting Jin through impossible decisions. She'd also confronted the reality of what her chosen life meant: the violence, the moral compromises, the weight of consequences. 1 month after the war ended, Jin took Maya to a quiet restaurant. Just the two of them. No security hovering, no business to discuss. It was the first truly peaceful moment they'd shared in months. "I've been thinking about the future," Jin said over dinner. "About what comes next for us, for the organization, for you and me personally." Maya set down her chopsticks, giving him her full attention. "This war taught me something," Jin continued. "It taught me that having someone I care about doesn't make me weaker. It makes me stronger, gives me something to fight for beyond just power and territory. You make me better, Maya. You challenge me, support me, and keep me human when this world tries to turn me into something else." "Jin," Maya started, but he held up a hand. "Let me finish. I know our relationship is complicated. I know the rules of my world say that personal attachments are vulnerabilities, but I don't care anymore. I love you, Maya. I think I've loved you since that night you walked into my bathroom and refused to be intimidated by me. And I want you to know that you're not just part of my organization. You're part of my life. Permanently, if you'll have me." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. In the months since that fateful night, her feelings for Jin had deepened into something profound and unshakable. He was brilliant and dangerous, ruthless and kind, powerful and surprisingly vulnerable. He was everything she never knew she wanted. "I love you too," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This wasn't the life I planned, but it's the life I choose. You're the life I choose. Jin reached across the table and took both her hands. Then let's build something together. Not just a criminal empire, but a life. A real life with moments like this, with peace and joy and possibility. We'll always have to deal with the darkness of this world, but we can create our own light within it. Maya smiled through her tears. Together, she agreed. Always together. 1 year after she'd accidentally walked into Jin Park's bathroom, Maya stood on the balcony of their shared penthouse, looking out at Seoul's glittering skyline. Her legitimate import business was thriving, providing both cover and genuine purpose. Her role in Jin's organization had evolved into something like a chief operating officer, handling international relations and strategic planning, and her relationship with Jin had deepened into a partnership that was both professional and deeply personal. She heard Jin come up behind her, felt his arms wrap around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how strange life is," Maya replied. "A year ago, I was just trying to survive, working 2 jobs, barely making rent, dreaming about a future that seemed impossibly far away. And now look at me. Look at us. Any regrets?" Jin asked. Maya turned in his arms to face him, reaching up to touch his face, tracing the faint scar that remained from that night of the war. "Not a single one. I walked into your bathroom terrified and lost. But I walked out of it found. You gave me purpose, strength, love, a family. You gave me everything." Jin kissed her softly. "You gave me the same things. Maybe more. You reminded me that this life doesn't have to be just about power and survival. It can be about building something meaningful with someone you love." They stood there together. 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, who'd built something beautiful in the midst of darkness. The girl who'd stumbled into a mafia boss's bathroom had become a force in her own right, a queen in an underground empire, loved and respected and feared in equal measure. And as Seoul sparkled below them, full of danger and possibility, Maya knew that whatever challenges came next, they'd face them the same way they'd faced everything else, together. Stronger as a partnership than they ever could have been alone. The girl who'd accidentally walked into Jin Park's bathroom had found her place in the world. And it was exactly where she belonged, but peace in their world was always temporary. Maya learned this lesson 6 months later when everything they'd built began to crack at the foundations. It started with small things. A shipment that went missing, a contact in customs who suddenly stopped returning calls, a politician who'd been on Jin's payroll for years abruptly cutting ties. Individually, these incidents seemed like bad luck or random complications. Together, they formed a pattern that made Maya's instincts scream danger. She brought her concerns to Jin one evening in his office. He'd been working late, reviewing financial reports, and he looked up when she entered with 2 cups of coffee. "You have that look," Jin said, accepting the coffee with a slight smile. "The one that means you've noticed something I've missed." Maya settled into the chair across from his desk. "Have you noticed the uptick in operational disruptions over the past 3 weeks? The missing shipments? The communication breakdowns? The sudden withdrawals of support from contacts we've had for years?" Jin's expression grew serious. "I've noticed. I attributed it to normal fluctuations in business. You think it's something more?" "I think someone is systematically undermining our operations," Maya said. "The pattern is too consistent to be coincidence. Someone with knowledge of our infrastructure is targeting our weak points." Jin set down his coffee and pulled up a document on his computer. "I had the same thought yesterday. Look at this." He turned the screen toward her. "I've been tracking the incidents. They started exactly 3 weeks ago, right after we finalized the expansion into Busan, and they're all hitting operations that only our senior members would have detailed knowledge about." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "You think we have another mole?" "I think we might have something worse," Jin said grimly. "I think we might have a senior member who's planning a coup." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. A coup wasn't just betrayal, it was an existential threat to everything Jin had built, everything they'd fought to protect. Who would have the resources and the motive? Maya asked, her mind already running through the organizational chart. "That's what we need to figure out," Jin replied, quietly. "If we're wrong and we start accusing senior members, we create the very division we're trying to prevent. But if we're right and we don't act fast enough, we could lose everything." Over the next week, Maya and Jin conducted a careful investigation. They reviewed financial records, looking for unusual transfers or unexplained expenses. They analyzed communication patterns, seeing who was talking to whom and how frequently. They even had their most trusted security personnel conduct discreet surveillance on the senior members. What they discovered was worse than they'd feared. Kim Dae-jung, one of Jin's longest-serving lieutenants, a man who'd been with the organization since Jin's father's time, was the source of the disruptions. He'd been systematically sabotaging operations, embezzling funds, and worst of all, he'd been in contact with external organizations, building support for a power play against Jin. The betrayal cut deep. Kim had been at Jin's side through the war with Kang, had helped build the current structure of the organization, had been someone Jin trusted implicitly. Why? Jin asked when they finally confronted the evidence spread across his desk. Kim has been loyal for 15 years. What changed? Maya had been thinking about this, analyzing Kim's recent behavior and communications. I think it's about legacy, she said carefully. Kim is 53 years old. He's given most of his adult life to this organization. But he's still a lieutenant, not the boss. I think he resents that you took over when you were so young, that you've built something bigger than what your father had. And I think our relationship made it worse. Jin looked at her sharply. Our relationship? How? Think about it, Maya said. You brought me in, an outsider, a foreigner, a woman, and within a year I'm sitting in on senior meetings, handling major negotiations, sharing your life. To someone like Kim, who's spent decades earning his position, that must feel like a slap in the face. Like loyalty and service don't matter as much as being the boss's favorite. Jin's jaw tightened. That's not fair. You've earned every bit of your position through competence and results. I know that, and you know that, Maya said gently. But Kim sees it differently. He sees you giving power to someone who hasn't paid the same dues he has. And that resentment festered until it turned into ambition. What do I do? Jin asked. And Maya heard the pain in his voice. He's not just an employee. He's been a friend, a mentor even. But if I let this slide, it shows weakness. It tells everyone in the organization that betrayal is acceptable if you've been around long enough. Maya moved around the desk to stand beside Jin, placing her hand on his shoulder. You do what you have to do. You protect the organization even when it hurts. That's what leadership means. The confrontation happened 2 days later. Jin called a meeting of all senior members, ostensibly to discuss the Busan expansion. Kim attended, seemingly unaware that his betrayal had been discovered. When everyone was assembled in the private conference room at the Golden Phoenix, Jin stood at the head of the table, his expression grave. Before we discuss business, Jin began, I need to address a matter of internal security. Over the past month, our organization has suffered a series of disruptions, financial losses, and security breaches. At first, these seemed like random incidents, but after investigation, a pattern emerged. The room grew tense. Maya, standing near the door, watched the senior members' faces, seeing confusion, concern, and in Kim's case, a carefully controlled blankness that was itself revealing. These incidents were not random, Jin continued. They were deliberate sabotage orchestrated by someone with intimate knowledge of our operations, someone in this room. Now there were murmurs, shocked looks exchanged between members. Kim remained still, his face a mask. Jin pulled out a folder and opened it. Kim Dae-jung, you've been with this organization for 15 years. You served my father loyally. You helped me when I took over. You were someone I trusted with my life. He paused, and Maya could hear the emotion he was struggling to contain. Why did you betray that trust? Kim sat frozen for a moment, then slowly smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was cold and bitter. Betray? Is that what you call it when someone finally has enough of being overlooked and undervalued? I never undervalued you, Jin said quietly. You're one of my senior lieutenants. You control significant territory and operations. I'm an employee, Kim spat, just like I was under your father. I've given 15 years of my life to this organization, risked my freedom, my life, for the Park family. And what do I have to show for it? A salary and a title that means I'm still taking orders from someone young enough to be my son. He stood, his bitterness fully visible now. Your father promised me a partnership, said that when the time was right, I'd become a full partner in this organization, not just a lieutenant. But then he died, and you took over, and suddenly those promises meant nothing. My father never documented any such promise, Jin said. I've reviewed all his records. There's nothing about making you a partner. Of course there isn't, Kim sneered. Your father kept his word through honor, not contracts. But you wouldn't understand that. You're too busy modernizing, bringing in outsiders. His eyes flicked to Maya with contempt. Elevating a foreign woman who's been here barely a year to a position above men who've bled for this family. Maya kept her expression neutral, refusing to react to the provocation. This isn't about Maya, Jin said firmly. This is about you embezzling funds, sabotaging operations, and conspiring with external organizations to undermine my leadership. Those are facts, Kim. Not feelings or perceived slights. Those are betrayals that cannot be excused. Kim laughed bitterly. You want to talk about betrayal? Let's talk about how you've betrayed your father's vision. He built this organization on Korean values, Korean loyalty, Korean strength. And you've turned it into some international corporation, making deals with Japanese, Chinese, Americans. You've diluted everything he stood for. My father built this organization to survive and thrive, Jin countered. The world changes, Kim. We adapt or we die. That's not betrayal, that's evolution. It's weakness, Kim said flatly, and that's why I did what I did. Someone needs to save this organization from your progressive nonsense. Someone needs to restore it to what it was meant to be. The room was utterly silent. Every person there understood what was happening. This wasn't just a confrontation between Jin and Kim. This was a fundamental clash of visions for the organization's future. Jin pulled out another document. You've been in contact with the Choi organization, haven't you? Trying to convince them to withdraw their alliance with us. You've also reached out to remnants of Kang's old network, trying to build a coalition against me. You plan to force me out and take control yourself. I plan to save this organization, Kim corrected, to return it to its roots, to traditional values and traditional methods. But yes, if that meant removing you, then so be it. Then you've forced my hand, Jin said quietly. He pulled out a gun from his desk drawer and the room tensed immediately. Maya's heart hammered in her chest. She'd known this confrontation might turn violent, but seeing Jin with a weapon pointed at a man he'd once called friend was different from imagining it. Wait. One of the other senior members, an older man named Park Sung-min, spoke up. Jin, think carefully about this. Kim is wrong. His methods are wrong. But killing him might create more problems than it solves. Some of the men respect him, have worked with him for years. His death could cause division. Jin's hand remained steady on the gun, but Maya could see him considering the words. She knew he didn't want to kill Kim, didn't want this blood on his hands, but he also couldn't show weakness. It was Mrs. Cho, who'd been quietly observing from the corner, who spoke next. There is a middle path, she said in Korean. Exile with conditions. Kim leaves Seoul, surrenders all his operations and contacts to the organization, and lives quietly somewhere far from here. If he ever returns, if he ever attempts to interfere with this organization again, the sentence is death. No negotiations, no second chances. Jin looked at his gun, then at Kim, then at the other members around the table. Maya could see him weighing options, considering consequences. Kim, Jin said finally, you're right about one thing. You've given years to this organization, years of service that meant something before you chose betrayal. For that service, I'm offering you a choice. Death now, quick and final, or exile. You leave Seoul within 24 hours. You surrender all your assets, all your contacts, all your operations to this organization. You go somewhere far from here, and you live quietly. If you ever return, if I ever hear that you're involving yourself in this business again, the mercy I'm showing today is void. Which do you choose? Kim stared at Jin for a long moment, and Maya could see the war happening behind his eyes. Pride warring with survival instinct. Finally, survival won. Exile, Kim said hoarsely. Jin lowered the gun. You have 24 hours. Park Sung-min will oversee the transfer of your operations. If you try to sabotage anything during the transition, if you try to take anything that doesn't belong to you, the deal is off. Understood? Kim nodded once, his face gray with defeat. He left the conference room without another word, and the remaining senior members sat in stunned silence. Jin addressed them, his voice firm. Let this be clear to everyone in this organization. Loyalty is rewarded. Service is valued. But betrayal, no matter how long you've been with us, no matter what you've contributed in the past, will not be tolerated. I am fair, I am reasonable, but I am not weak. The future of this organization is international, modern, and built on merit, not tradition for tradition's sake. If any of you have a problem with that direction, speak now, and we can discuss your exit terms. But if you stay, you commit fully to the vision we're building together. Silence. Then, one by one, the senior members nodded their acceptance. Some looked relieved, others thoughtful, but all of them understood the message. After the meeting dispersed, Maya found Jin alone in his office, staring out the window at the Seoul skyline. She approached quietly, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "Did I?" Jin asked. "Or did I just delay the inevitable? Kim will hate me until the day he dies, and there will always be others like him. People who resent change, who want things to stay the same." "That's true in any organization," Maya said. "But you showed everyone today that you can be both strong and merciful. You didn't kill a man who betrayed you, but you didn't let him off without consequences either. That's the kind of leadership people can respect and follow." Jin turned in her arms, pulling her close. "I couldn't have navigated this without you. Your analysis of Kim's motives, your counsel during the investigation, even just your presence during that confrontation, it all mattered." "We're partners," Maya said simply. "In everything. That's what we promised each other." Over the next month, the organization stabilized. Kim's departure left a void that Jin carefully filled with younger, more progressive members who shared his vision for the future. The operations Kim had controlled were redistributed, and surprisingly, they ran more efficiently under new management. Maya's role continued to expand. She wasn't just Jin's consultant anymore, she was his second-in-command in all but title. She attended every major meeting, weighed in on every significant decision, and gradually earned the respect of even the most traditional members who'd initially been skeptical of her. Her legitimate business continued to thrive as well. She'd expanded from hair care products to include a broader range of African and African American beauty and wellness products, filling a genuine market need in Seoul's growing international community. The business gave her both satisfaction and practical cover for her role in Jin's organization. But it was her relationship with Jin that truly flourished. They moved beyond the initial intensity of new love into something deeper and more sustainable. They learned each other's rhythms, moods, and needs. They argued sometimes, about business decisions or personal matters. But they always came back to the fundamental truth that they were better together than apart. 18 months after walking into Jin's bathroom, Maya sat in a small cafe in Hongdae, meeting with an old friend from her teaching days. Jennifer was one of the few people from her previous life that Maya had maintained contact with, carefully keeping her current circumstances vague. "You look different," Jennifer observed, studying Maya over her coffee. "More confident, more settled. Soul Life is obviously agreeing with you." Maya smiled. "I've found my place here. It took a while, but I feel like I finally know who I am and what I'm doing." "And the mysterious boyfriend?" Jennifer asked with a teasing smile. "You're still being incredibly secretive about him." "He's private," Maya said, which was true. "But he's good to me. We're building something real together." "I'm happy for you," Jennifer said sincerely. "When you first came to Korea, you seemed so lost, like you were running from something rather than running towards something. But now you seem like you've found what you were looking for." Maya considered this. "I think I found something better than what I was looking for. I came here with a plan, a specific vision of what my life would be, and none of that happened the way I expected. But what I got instead is richer and more meaningful than anything I imagined." They talked for another hour, catching up on gossip and news from the international community in Seoul. As Maya was leaving, Jennifer grabbed her hand. "Whatever you're doing, whoever you're with, just be careful, okay? I know you can take care of yourself. But Seoul can be complicated for foreigners, especially women. Just promise me you're being smart." "I promise," Maya said, touched by the genuine concern. "I'm more careful than you know." That night, Maya told Jin about the conversation. They were in bed, that comfortable space between waking and sleeping where honest conversations happened. "Do you ever wish you could tell people the truth about us?" Jin asked. "About what you really do? Who I really am?" Maya thought about it. "Sometimes. It would be nice not to have to maintain the fiction, but I also understand why we can't. The secrecy isn't just about privacy. It's about safety. For both of us. Do you ever regret it? Jin pressed. Giving up a normal life for this? Maya turned to face him in the darkness. No. Never. This life has given me purpose, love, belonging. Everything I was missing before. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it's complicated. Yes, I can never fully explain to my family or old friends what I'm doing here. But I'd make the same choice again in a heartbeat. Jin pulled her closer, his breath warm against her hair. I love you, Maya Thompson. You walked into my life by accident and became the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you too, Maya whispered. My beautiful, dangerous, brilliant man. 2 years after the bathroom incident, as Maya and Jin referred to it, the organization faced a new challenge, but this time, it came from an unexpected direction. The Korean government launched a major anti-corruption initiative targeting organized crime and the political and business connections that enabled it. Several high-profile arrests were made, and suddenly, operating in Seoul became significantly more difficult. Jin had always maintained careful relationships with police and politicians, but the new initiative was coming from the federal level, where his influence was more limited. The prosecutor leading the charge was a woman named Lee Min-jung, and she had a reputation for being incorruptible and relentless. She's going after everyone, Jin told Maya during an emergency meeting with his senior members. Not just us, all the major organizations in Seoul. She wants to make a name for herself by cleaning up the city. Can we negotiate with her? One of the members asked. Everyone has a price. Not her, Jin said firmly. I've had people look into her background. She's driven by genuine idealism, not ambition or greed. Trying to bribe her would only make her focus on us more intensely. Maya had been studying the information they'd gathered on Prosecutor Lee. She's smart, Maya observed. She's not going after the organizations directly. She's targeting the infrastructure that allows them to operate, the corrupt officials, the money laundering operations, the legitimate businesses that provide cover. She's trying to dismantle the ecosystem. Which means we need to adapt, Jin said. We need to make our legitimate businesses actually legitimate. Clean up our connections, distance ourselves from the most obvious illegal operations. We need to become harder to target. Over the next 6 months, Jin's organization underwent a significant transformation. They sold off or shut down operations that were too obviously criminal. They restructured their money laundering to use more sophisticated international methods. They increased their investment in genuinely legitimate businesses, even if it meant lower short-term profits. It was painful and expensive, but it worked. While other organizations were being hit hard by Prosecutor Lee's initiative, Jin's organization remained largely untouched. They'd made themselves a less attractive target by being less obviously criminal. Maya played a crucial role in this transition. Her understanding of legitimate business practices, her international connections, and her ability to navigate regulatory requirements made her invaluable. She helped structure their legitimate enterprises, ensured proper documentation and compliance, and gradually built a business empire that could stand on its own even without the criminal foundation. You know what's funny? Jin said one evening as they reviewed financial reports. We're actually making more money now than we were before the crackdown. The legitimate businesses are generating serious revenue, and because we're not spending as much on bribes and security to protect illegal operations, our profit margins are better. Maya smiled. Turns out crime doesn't always pay as well as actual business. Don't get too excited, Jin cautioned. We're still involved in illegal activities, just more selective about them. But you're right that the balance has shifted. We're becoming more of a business empire that happens to have criminal elements rather than a criminal organization with business fronts. Is that a bad thing? Maya asked. Jin considered. No, actually, it's probably the future of organizations like ours. The world is changing. The old model of violence and intimidation doesn't work as well in a modern connected society. The organizations that survive will be the ones that adapt, that find ways to generate power and profit through business as much as through crime. 3 years after walking into Jin's bathroom, Maya received news that shook her world. Her mother was sick, seriously sick, and wanted Maya to come home to Atlanta. She stared at the email from her brother for a long time, feeling the pull of two worlds. She'd built a life in Seoul, a life she loved, with a man she loved. But her mother was back in Atlanta, possibly dying, wanting to see her daughter one more time. You have to go, Jin said when she showed him the email. Family is important. She's your mother. I know, Maya said. But I'm terrified. Terrified of going back and realizing I don't fit there anymore. Terrified of seeing my family and having to lie about my life. Terrified of leaving you, even temporarily, especially now when things are so complex. I'll come with you, Jin offered. Maya looked at him in surprise. To Atlanta? Can you even leave Seoul right now? I can make it work for a week, Jin said. You shouldn't have to face this alone. Besides, it's time I met your family. Even if they don't know everything about what we do, they should know that you're loved and cared for. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. You'd do that? Meet my complicated family? Deal with my brother's judgment? Face my mother who's probably going to hate that I'm with someone in your line of work? Your mother won't know what line of work I'm in, Jin pointed out. She'll just know I'm the man who loves her daughter. And yes, I do that. I'd do anything for you. They flew to Atlanta a week later. The trip was surreal for Maya. She'd been gone 3 years, but it felt like a lifetime. The city looked the same, but felt foreign, like a place she'd visited in a dream rather than a home. Her mother was in the hospital, weakened by cancer but still sharp-minded. When Maya walked into her room with Jin, her mother's eyes widened. Baby girl, she said, her voice hoarse but warm. You came. Of course I came, Mama, Maya said, rushing to her side and taking her hand. I'm so sorry I've been gone so long. Her mother's eyes shifted to Jin, who stood respectfully at the foot of the bed. And who is this handsome man? This is Jin Park, Mama. He's my partner. We've been together for almost 2 years. Her mother studied Jin with the assessing gaze only mothers could pull off. Jin Park. That's Korean? Yes, ma'am, Jin said, his English perfect, his manner respectful. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Thompson. Maya speaks of you often. I bet she does, her mother said with a slight smile. Probably tells you all about her crazy family. Over the next few days, Maya spent as much time as possible at the hospital. Jin impressed her mother with his attentiveness and respect, and even her skeptical brother seemed to grudgingly approve after Jin handled a confrontation with grace and calm. He seems good for you, her mother said on Maya's last night in Atlanta. They were alone in the hospital room, just the two of them like it used to be when Maya was young. You seem happier, more settled than I've ever seen you. I am, Mama, Maya said honestly. I've found my place. I know you wanted me to have a different life, a traditional career, stay closer to home. But what I've built in Seoul, it's mine, it's real, and it makes me happy. Her mother squeezed her hand weakly. That's all a mother wants. For her child to be happy, to be safe, to be loved. You have all that? I do, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. I really do. Then I can rest easy, her mother said. You've grown into such a strong, capable woman, Maya. I'm proud of you. Whatever you're doing over there in Korea, wherever life takes you, just promise me you'll stay true to yourself. Don't let the world make you into someone you're not. I promise, Mama, Maya whispered. Her mother died 3 days after Maya and Jin returned to Seoul. Maya flew back alone for the funeral, and it was one of the hardest weeks of her life. But she got through it, supported by Jin's constant calls and messages, by the knowledge that she had a life and a love waiting for her in Seoul. When she finally returned to Seoul, exhausted and emotionally drained, Jin was waiting at the airport. He didn't say anything, just wrapped her in his arms and held her while she cried. Take all the time you need, he said quietly. I've cleared your schedule. The organization can run without us for a while. We're going to take care of you first. They spent 2 weeks at a private house Jin owned on Jeju Island. Just the two of them and the ocean. Maya grieved, processed, and slowly healed. Jin was patient and present, knowing when to talk and when to just be there. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the beach, Jin took Maya's hand. I've been thinking about something, he said. About us. About the future. Maya looked at him, seeing something in his expression that made her heart beat faster. We've built something incredible together, Jin continued. A partnership in business, in life, in everything that matters. And I know the world we live in doesn't exactly encourage traditional commitments. Marriage in our line of work can be complicated, can create legal vulnerabilities, but I don't care about any of that. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Maya Thompson, you walked into my bathroom 3 years ago and changed my life completely. You made me better, stronger, more human. You've stood beside me through wars and betrayals, through transformations and challenges. You've earned the respect of dangerous men and built an empire of your own. And through it all, you've been the light in my life, the person who makes everything else worthwhile. He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds. I'm asking you to marry me, not because our world expects it, but because I can't imagine spending the rest of my life without you as my wife, my partner, my family. Will you marry me? Maya looked at the ring, then at Jin, and saw in his eyes everything she'd ever wanted. Love, respect, partnership, home. Yes, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes. Absolutely, yes. Jin slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant colors. They stood there, two people from completely different worlds who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, who'd built something beautiful and lasting against all odds. The girl who'd walked into a bathroom looking for safety had found so much more. She'd found her strength, her purpose, her place in the world. And most importantly, she'd found love in the arms of a man who saw her, truly saw her, and chose her every single day. As they walked back to the house hand in hand, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here. All the wrong turns that turned out to be exactly right. All the terrifying moments that led to triumph. All the impossible choices that led to this perfect moment. She'd come to Seoul running from expectations and limitations. She'd stumbled into a mafia boss's bathroom terrified and desperate. But she'd walked out of it transformed, ready to claim a life she'd never imagined, but that fit her perfectly. And now, as Jin Park's fiancée, as a respected leader in their organization, as a successful businesswoman in her own right, Maya had become exactly who she was always meant to be. Strong, fearless, loved, and finally, completely, beautifully, home.